Good afternoon and welcome to today's Planning Committee meeting. I would welcome those members of the public and press in attendance and those who are watching the live stream of this meeting via YouTube. Whilst this meeting is being held publicly, it is also being streamed via YouTube. Minutes of the meeting will be produced in the usual way and a recording of the meeting will be available to view on YouTube until such time that the minutes are produced. Please be aware that only audio from the microphones will be captured on the live stream. Therefore, those invited to speak need to ensure their microphones are on when speaking and are as close to you as possible. To enable the meeting to run in an orderly manner, can all present keep their microphones off, except when invited to speak. Please ensure that the microphone is turned off when you have finished speaking. I would also ask that everyone ensures their mobile phones are on silent or turned off for the duration of the meeting. Please be aware that the cameras will be on at all times during this meeting. With regard to the meeting, I must ask members of the public to refrain from interrupting. The only members of the public allowed to speak are those who have registered. Anyone who speaks must do so in a respectful and polite manner. It is right that there is meaningful discussion about the merits of applications, but we will not allow inappropriate language or personal attacks on councillors and their beliefs, on members of the public, or on officers' professional advice. We now go to agenda item number 1, which is appointment of the chairman of the Planning Committee for the municipal year. Do I have a nomination for chairman?
Yes, I'd like to propose Councillor David Connors chairman, please.
I'll second it.
Thank you. I therefore duly announce Councillor Connor as chairman of the Planning Committee for the municipal year. Councillor Connor, would you like to take your place at the...
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for appointing me as chairman for a further municipal year. We'll now go to agenda item number 2, and I'd like to ask member services if we have any apologies for absence. So over to you, Linda, please.
Yes, we've had apologies from Councillor Marks and Councillor Scolding.
Thank you very much for that, Linda. Now we'll go to agenda item number 3, which is the appointment of the vice chairman of the Planning Committee for the municipal year 22-23. And firstly, I'd like to propose Councillor Maureen Davis as vice chair. Have I got a seconder on that? Councillor French, anybody else would like to put their names down forward before I knock the hammer to? No, thank you very much. So Councillor Davis will be my vice chair for the next municipal year. Thanks very much. So we'll move on to 4, which is to confirm and sign the minutes from the previous meeting of May the 4th, 2022. Do I have a proposer to approve the minutes, please? Councillor French, have I got a seconder on that? Councillor Benny, just show of hands just so I can sign these off. No, I think Councillor Cornwall and Councillor Davis weren't there at the last meeting, so we'll say that those minutes have been approved. Thank you. So 5 is we'll go to agenda number 5, which is urgent items. Again, there are none. So quickly on to 6, which is declarations of interest. Member services will now go to each councillor in turn. And can you please state if you have anything to declare in relation to any agenda item being discussed or voted on today. So thank you, Linda, please.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Benny.
Thank you. The only thing I've got today is Morton Hall have got 2 applications before us today, and I do know Matthew Hall. He's done work for me previously, and he's also doing work for Chantress Town Council, of which I'm involved in. So that's it today.
Councillor Connor.
Yeah, I've got one. I attend Doddington Parish Council as when I can, and but I do not take part in any planning or voting or discussions at that meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, and obviously March Town Council, where I do exactly the same. Thank you.
Councillor Cornwell.
As far as I know, no.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs Davis.
Yes, I'm chairman of Wimbledon Parish Council, and I also attend Doddington Parish Council meetings as a ward councillor. But I'm here today with an open mind.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs French.
Member of March Town Council, but don't take any part in planning applications.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs Mayor.
I'm a member of Whittlesea Town Council. I'm no longer on the planning committee at Whittlesea. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Murphy.
Yes, I attend Town Council but take no part in planning applications.
Thank you. Councillor Scolding. Sorry, wrong reading. Wrong line. Councillor Purser.
Yes, I'm a member of March Town Council, but I take no part, no discussion in any of the planning applications.
Thank you. Councillor Sutton.
Nothing to declare.
Thank you. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, members. Thank you, Linda. Now we'll go to the main part of the meeting, the planning applications. Just to remind members, a proposal to grant or refuse an application should only be made when invited to do so. And if going against officer recommendation, the proposal should be accompanied by the planning reasons for doing so. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Alison Hoffman. She's the Senior Development Officer here at Fenland to present item application F/YR21/1031F, agenda item number 7. So whenever you're ready, Alison, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
This application is for the erection of 38 dwellings and a domestic workshop serving plot 17 accessed from Wolf Lane involving the demolition of building. The location is Dennick's Yard, Back Road, Gorefield, and the applicant is Mr. E. Peggs of Kempston Homes Limited. The agent is Mr. Jordan Trundle of Peter Humphrey Associates, and the application is before Planning Committee, given the number of objections and the Parish Council comments contrary to the officer recommendation. Members will have received a written update in connection with this proposal. In summary, this update reiterates the requirement for a fire hydrant condition, which is captured as condition 12 of the report, updates regarding the contamination on site and the need for further investigation in respect of subterranean structures, and for an agreement regarding the methodology to demolish the grain store to be in place prior to this element of the scheme commencing. These matters being covered by the amended conditions quoted in the update. The likely presence of asbestos is also highlighted, and it is noted that this could be covered by way of informative. A further communication has also been received from a resident reiterating their earlier objections to the scheme, which have been previously addressed in the officer report, excepting electricity supply, which would fall outside the planning considerations of the scheme. The current slide shows the site location in both plan and aerial form. It should be noted that there are 2 access points to the site, one from Back Road to the north and a single access from Wolf Lane to the southeast, which is to serve one of the proposed plots, that being plot 17. The corresponding location plan submitted by the agent is now on display. The development proposed comprises a mix of dwelling types served from a main estate road that runs north to south with private drives extending east and west. Whilst originally concern was raised by planning officers regarding the layout of the upper northeastern quadrant of the site, the agent has reworked this area to overcome these initial concerns, and it is now considered that the layout presented aligns with policy. Concerns raised regarding highways and access are noted. However, the highways team have not raised any objections to the scheme, and there would be nothing to substantiate a refusal in this regard. It is again noted that the scheme will see the removal of a non-conforming B8 use, which could be resurrected and indeed intensified without recourse from a planning perspective. It is also noted that matters of drainage and biodiversity have been addressed through the evaluation of the scheme, and that there are no technical objections to the scheme from the statutory consultees. The current slide details the earlier approval for 15 dwellings, which represented a net increase of 14 dwellings on site. This was an illustrative scheme for that quantum of development, which established the principle of residential development on this brownfield land. It is noted that the current scheme proposals do not extend the boundaries of the site. However, they do substantially increase the quantum of development. Although the settlement hierarchy for Gorefield limits development to that of a very limited nature and normally limited in scale to residential infill, appropriate weight must be given to the brownfield status of the land and the opportunity to remove a non-conforming use from a residential area, as required by the National Planning Policy Framework, which promotes the effective use of land. Looking at the scheme details, the current slide shows street scene views of the proposed development, capturing a range of two-storey and single-storey dwellings, with the two-storey element delivered as both detached and semi-detached properties. The upper view shows plots 18 to 23, which are located to the southern part of the site, facing the lower hammerhead and private drive, which extends in a westerly direction. The second street scene view shows plots 27 to 30, which are located to the western side of the access, immediately prior to the hammerhead. The third street scene view shows plots 24 to 26, which is to the northeast of the hammerhead in the southwestern quadrant of the site. The fourth street scene view shows the bungalows to be located to the eastern boundary of the site at the end of the private drive, which runs from the main access to the east. Finally, the lower street scene view captures the view from back road frontage and includes plot 1 of the development, which has been approved as a standalone dwelling in late 2021. The images currently on display show views from back road and show the frontage warehouse buildings in context with the existing residential property at number 42 Back Road. The image in the bottom right hand corner shows the view back along Back Road looking eastward. The images on display now show the existing warehouse buildings within the site. This final image taken from Google Earth shows the site from Wolf Lane. The silos can be seen in the distance. The access in the foreground of the photograph will serve plot 17 of the development. The development of this site will see the removal of a non-conforming use within a residential area, which already benefits from outline planning permission for residential development, albeit for a lesser number of units. The current scheme will maximise the effective use of a brownfield site, which is currently vacant. Accordingly, whilst the scheme is not an infill as promoted by policy LP3, there would be no policy justification to resist the application given the weight afforded to the site's redevelopment under the National Planning Policy Framework. Matters of residential amenity, character, contamination, drainage, highways and biodiversity have been duly considered in accordance with the relevant national and local planning policy framework, and there are no matters which would render the redevelopment of this site unacceptable, subject to appropriate safeguarding conditions imposed to direct the development of the scheme going forward. Therefore, the recommendation is to grant as per pages 44 to 51 of the agenda, with the updated conditions listed on the written update that has been circulated. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, right. Thank you very much, Alison, for that. We have no speakers on this application, and I would therefore like members, if they have any questions or even clarifications to officers, if you'd like to do any of those, please raise your hand. So off questions, clarifications to officers, members. Councillor Sutton.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, just two really. The first one, I note that the parish council raised objections about being overdeveloped and lack of amenity space. Can you, I think I've read it in the document, but can you confirm that the gardens do have the required third of the plot as within the plan?
I undertook an evaluation and calculated all the garden areas, and they're all at the minimum of third or above.
Thank you for that, Alison. And the second question is around the NHS England East request for £9,234 for blue light services. Has that been rejected out of hand because of the viability, because it seems quite a small sum. So I think we ought to at least try to accommodate that if we can.
Because the scheme has been proven not to be viable, we wouldn't be able to sort of go back to the agent and request that they make an allowance for that £9,000, because obviously that isn't part of our approved policy. And obviously if there was money in the pot to be had to make a section 106 contribution, really the first and foremost point that we should direct it to is policy requirements. So the scheme's unviable. That's been assessed by a section 106 officer, and although commendable and justified from an NHS perspective, it isn't something that we could go back to the agent and ask for over and above. Thank you.
That is a shame, really, but you know, I accept that the cost of demolition and remedial work, you know, will be huge. But it would have been nice just to have, you know, allowed that small sum. But yeah, thank you for that, Alison.
Thank you, Councillor Sutton. Anybody else? Oh, I can't see anybody else at all. Any more questions, clarifications for officers? Just to remind everybody, can't see any. So thank you very much for that. So now we'll invite members to debate the item in respect of the material planning considerations relevant to the application. If you'd like to speak, please raise your hand. So we're in debate, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Councillor Sutton.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, reading through the agenda papers and the case officer report, which is very good and comprehensive.
Absolutely.
It's all the residents' concerns and complaints seem to have been addressed, and so long as we've got the third amenity space, I don't see in terms of policy where we could possibly do anything other than approve. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Sutton. Anybody like to add to the debate? Because I can't see too many hands. And Councillor Davis.
Yeah, I think officers have got this right. I know parish council's put in an objection, but it's the same objection that they actually put into the first application. So they haven't actually commented on the additional properties. So I don't see how we can, you know, not grant this according to the NFPP. So
Yeah, of course, you and Councillor Sutton are absolutely correct. So, Councillor French.
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Sutton and Davis. I mean, obviously we need to support the villages where they need affordable housing. So I think we should welcome this, and I'm happy to propose.
So I can't see anybody else. So before we go to the vote, I'd like to invite officers to make any comments if they have any. No, not at all. So what we'll do now is go to the vote without further ado. So have I got a proposer? Councillor French. Proposed. So it's proposed by Councillor French to go with officer's recommendation to approve this application. Have we got a second of that, Councillor? So all those in favour of that recommendation, please raise their hands now. That looks as though that's unanimous, and looks like so the application has been approved. Thank you very much for that. So now we'll go to item application number 8. Hand over to David Rowan. He's the development manager here at Fenland to present agenda item number 8, F/YR21/1370F. David, when you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This is an application to erect a dwelling involving the removal of existing residential caravan and the retrospective siting of a container at Elm Farm, Hospital Road, Doddington. It's a full planning application. The application site is shown in red on the location plan and the aerial photograph. It sits to the east of an existing group of buildings which are used for storage purposes, previously used for agricultural purposes, It should be pointed out there's no apparent planning permission for that B8 use on the site. There is also an unauthorised mobile home on the site as well, which sits in the bottom left corner of this group. The site is located within the open countryside outside Doddington. It's apparent from particularly the aerial image. So the application proposes the erection of a dwelling, which would involve a new access being formed onto Hospital Road, which you can see sort of in the yellow area. There'd be a driveway turning area shown as well, which would then serve the garage block, which is sort of the right hand black block, and then the dwelling is the other black block within sort of the centre of the site. The proposed elevations are shown on the plan. As you can see, it's a two-storey dwelling, although the first floor accommodation is within the roof. The elevations of the double garage are also shown on this image as well. The photographs on the screen show the nature of the site and its surroundings. So the upper left image shows the existing group of buildings, including the mobile home, which I referred to earlier. And then the upper right and the bottom image show the actual site for the dwelling. So to summarise, the site is in an elsewhere location as defined within the local plan and is also within flood zone 3. The proposed dwelling is considered to be unjustified in this location and would have an adverse impact upon the character and appearance of the countryside, and would also be sequentially unacceptable from a flood risk perspective. In combination, this would be contrary to policies of the local plan and also policies of the MPPF, and as such, the officer recommendation is to refuse as set out within the agenda. Thank you, Chairman.
Yes, thank you, David. We have one speaker on this application. I'd now like to invite George Borman. He's the agent to make his presentation to the committee. When you're nicely seated, you have 5 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm speaking on behalf of Matthew Hall today. The majority of the letters of support for this application are from persons down this road, with the remainder from Doddington, which shows local support. One of these is from Mega Plants, which is another business down this road. All consultees support this application and there have been no objections. This site is in flood zone 3, however, mitigation measures have been proposed in the independent flood risk assessment, and this has been approved by the Environment Agency. At this site, there has been an approval for a residential dwelling by change of use of the existing barn in 2015. Previous approvals have allowed the setting of the caravan on the site. There are no objections from Cambridgeshire County Council Highways, and an application requested by Mega Plants requested passing bays, which will further improve Hospital Road. The applicant has lived on site for almost 9 years in the mobile home, as well as run his business for the same period of time. During this time, he has paid council and middle level drain charges. The applicant buys, sells and repairs various machinery and tools. The containers on site and the shed are for equipment and are used as a workshop. The applicant has been broken into 4 times, with tools and equipment having been stolen. The proposal is for a dwelling on site to allow the mobile home to be removed. The dwelling has approved mitigation measures by the Environment Agency, and this is safer living accommodation than the mobile home. Having a permanent dwelling on site will also aid security. The removal of the mobile home will also improve the character of the area. There is local support for this application from persons down this road and from Doddington Parish Council. There are no concerns raised regarding the design, size or neighbouring amenity. This application is for running a local business on a site that has previous planning approvals for a residential barn conversion, which would have allowed a residential property on the site. The business has been running for almost 9 years at this site and is established within the existing barn. We hope members will support this application for a local business. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Boreham. Now I'd like members to put questions, clarifications to Mr. Boreham. You know what to do. Councillor Benny, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Boreham, you said that the applicant has been paying council tax and business rates on these premises. Is it a residential, sorry, is it an agricultural business that he runs from here? Okay, okay.
Any more questions for Mr. Boreham? I can't see anybody with a burning ambition to do that. So thank you very much for that. You obviously may take your seat when obviously you feel able to do so. So members, questions, clarifications for officers? Councillor French, please.
Thank you. Excuse me, how long has the mobile home actually been there, do you know? I did hear 9 years, but is that 9 years or is it? And the second part of the question, I did pick up that, sorry? And also 2015, there was an approved plan. Can you elaborate on that, please?
Please, David, when you're ready.
Yep, through you, Chairman. Set out in the sort of the history section of the reports, there's been previous approvals on the site for a mobile home on a temporary basis for agricultural workers. That permission, or those permissions, elapsed in 2014. So the site, so the mobile home has effectively been on site since 2014 without the necessary planning permission in place. In terms of the approvals for residential use on the site, again in 2015 there was a prior notification submitted for the conversion of the most substantial building on the site to a residential use under the Class Q prior notification, the permitted development right. At that point in time that was approved. However, that either hasn't been implemented or the works haven't been completed within the requisite time. There was then a resubmission of that in 2018, at which point it transpired that the building wasn't being used for agricultural purposes and therefore doesn't qualify as a Class Q conversion. So as it stands, there is no extant approval for residential on the site.
Ian did ask the question, do you know what the use is if it's not agricultural?
Through you, Chairman. Our understanding is that it's a sort of a B8 storage use. I think as Mr. Boreham's sort of indicated in his presentation, the applicant operates a sort of buying, selling, doing up equipment and machinery, I think. So certainly not an agricultural use.
So you don't know if it's agricultural machinery?
Through Chairman, whether it's agricultural machinery or not, it's still, whether I suppose ultimately whether it's a combine harvester or a car, it's still not an agricultural use. It's the maintenance and doing up of machinery.
Anybody else at all? Councillor Benny, thank you.
Thank you. Question for David. Do we know if the council tax has been paid on this as a residential, and if so, for how long?
Through Chairman, my understanding is that council tax has been paid on this since 2014. I've not been informed as to whether there's been any business rates paid, however. Only council tax.
Thank you very much.
So would you like to carry on, or is that the end of your question?
That's the end of my question. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else got any questions for officers at all before we move on to the debate? No? No, thank you very much. So now, members, I'd like to invite you to debate the item in respect of the material considerations relevant to the application. If you'd like to speak, raise your hand. Councillor Sutton, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, as David indicated, there's a long history of temporary permissions on this caravan, which ran out on the 14th of October 2014. And that temporary permission was for pheasant breeding at the time, which subsequently, I think on one of the planning applications I read that ceased to exist. So the new use doesn't seem to be agriculture. I was going to ask a question about the extant planning permission, but it's been confirmed that the mobile home is being lived in without permission. So I think my view would have been slightly different if it had extant permission to replace the thing with a dwelling. I probably would have been perhaps more in favour than as we are now. Somebody's living somewhere that hasn't got permission, and I don't think we should be giving them permission to replace something that hasn't got permission. So my view is that the officers got this one bang on. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you for those comments, Councillor Sutton. Councillor Murphy.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I totally agree with Councillor Sutton. And this is going to the ridiculous, really. It's gone from a caravan to South Fork. And I think what we're doing, we're having a wall pulled over our eyes about this. And I certainly am dedicated to this.
Okay, Councillor Murphy. Anybody else like to keep the debate going? Councillor Benny, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I look at this, we've got a caravan that's been there since, or a mobile home that's been there since 2014. It has got extant permission on it, but it's not been followed up with enforcement to remove it if it's not supposed to be there. And that has been there since 2014. We had a very similar case at Guy Hearn, where there was a mobile home with people living in there, and we gave permission for that one. You know, there is a business here. We've taken council tax off this man for living there, and we haven't followed it up with enforcement to remove it. And I think putting a house there would be a lot better than leaving a caravan there. And the principle of residential use was approved in the barn conversion. And the barn itself is not a quaint old barn. It's quite a standard agricultural building. So I would be inclined to support this application and put a house there, which would be a lot better to live in than a mobile home, and provide a home and allow this business to flourish where it is. That would be my thoughts on this one. So I would be inclined to support this application, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for your comments there, Councillor Benny. Councillor French.
Sorry, it's a question for the officers. Yeah, if you don't mind. Could he or they not have applied for a certificate of lawful use?
Through you, Chairman, the residential use of the site would not be lawful at this point in time. It is still an unlawful use. It's not been there for the requisite period of time.
So we're going back in debate after that one. So just some clarification from Councillor French. Yeah, anybody else want to continue the debate at all? Well, I think I'll come in there then. We've taken, as Councillor Benny's already said, we've taken the council tax off him. He did get planning permission a few years ago, didn't he, for a barn? And perhaps he didn't have the financial position to, or things didn't go quite right to do that. But things are now perhaps better for him. And are we open? I think we've got to ask ourselves. You know, nothing's always absolutely correct in this world, is it? And is Fenland open for business or isn't it? I think that's what we've got. I think that's perhaps the direct bit of it. We've been through COVID, and still he's managed to pay his council tax, and he's still managed to carry on. So I do sympathise with officers and their report. So I do see their side of it, but we are open for business. I think we should give these people a chance. There is houses down further on. There's another couple of houses beyond him, I do believe. There is obviously a house next door. Maybe it was a replacement from Mr. Welsher. We've just had 2 or 3 or 4 houses now at the top of Hospital Road. And we've just, mega plants have just also got permission for a cafe, and quite rightfully so. So we are encouraging local businesses on that route, aren't we? So it'd only just be absolutely fair to give the guy a chance. He's an up and coming generation. Perhaps some of us have had our chances as far as that, but I don't think we should say to youngsters, no chance at all, you know. So for me, as much as I think officers have got this right in some ways, I think I could go against officers' recommendation and for me. But so, Councillor Mayor.
Yeah, my concern is not the fact that we've already approved properties along Hospital Road, because we're looking at a completely separate application.
We are.
My concern is there a business being run there or isn't there? Or is it just going to be built as a residential property in the countryside?
That's perhaps officers, we can take that back when we finish the debate, and officers can come in there and probably answer that one, Councillor Mayor. Councillor French.
Yeah, the application is actually erection of one dwelling 2-storey involving removal of the existing caravan. Doesn't say anything about running a business in the application.
Well, we have to do.
That's what's in front of us.
Well, Councillor French, we have to judge this application by what's in front of us. We can't go hearsays or anything like that, can we? We have to go. Councillor Cornwall, thank you. You're absolutely right, Councillor Cornwall, as I said with Mr. Councillor French. So that's what we need to look at, committee members. So we're still in debate. Anybody else finished at all? Finished the debate? Okay, so Councillor Mayor, officers, would you like to answer Councillor Mayor's question if you can? Thank you.
Thank you, through you, Chairman. Yeah, the application isn't for the retention of the business, and indeed the premises where the business is sort of taking place isn't actually within the red line boundary of the application site either. So the comments that have been made about the application is purely for a dwelling are correct. The business element has come in mainly through the applicant's submission that effectively the dwelling is required in connection with the business.
Thank you for clarifying that, David. Any more questions to officers before we go in? I'm looking for a proposer. So no more questions? No, can't see any. So right, I'd now like to invite members to make a proposal on the application. Sorry? Oh, sorry, David, yeah.
Yeah, through you, Chairman. I think just to sort of pick up on the issues that have been sort of raised in the debate by members, and I suppose to clarify one or two issues, without wishing to contradict you, the payment of council tax is not a material consideration in terms of the determination of this application, and indeed doesn't have any bearing as to whether the residential use of the site is lawful or not. I think to pick up on a point that Councillor Benny raised about previous decisions that the committee has made regarding the replacement of mobile homes, to the best of my knowledge, the ones that have been brought in front of the committee and subsequently granted by members have always had a lawful residential use on the site, which it isn't the case here. And I think also to pick up on the issue of the sort of residential approval that there was on the site in 2015, clearly the change of use of a building under the Class Q agricultural building to residential permitted development right is a very different issue from a policy point of view than the erection of a new build dwelling on the site, and shouldn't in any way sort of set any kind of precedent for effectively the development of a new dwelling actually on land adjacent to that complex of buildings. I think as well, the fact is that as it stands at the moment, that building wouldn't also be now allowed to be converted because it's no longer an agricultural building and would no longer qualify under Class Q. So I think from every angle, that issue really isn't one which members should base their decision on in terms of this application. It really is a case of looking at what the application is for and what the relevant planning policies, both locally and nationally, set out.
Thank you, David, for clarifying those points. Councillor Sutton. Okay, well, I'm just going to come to that really. So now I'd like to invite members to make a proposal on the application. Please do so by raising your hand. So we've got a proposal by Councillor Sutton. What is it, please?
Can I just make very clear, Chairman, that had a mobile home had extant permission, my thinking and decision might have been very different. But as we've got a dwelling that's got no permission. We've got an application that's asking to replace that dwelling that hasn't got permission. So I think that the officers have got this one absolutely right, and I propose we go with officer's recommendation.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Sutton. So we've got a proposal to go with officer recommendation to refuse this application. It's proposed by Councillor Sutton. Have we got a seconder? Councillor Murphy, thank you very much for that. So we'll now go to the vote on that proposition to refuse this application. So all those in favour of that proposition, please put the hands up. Those against? 4. So that looks to me 5 against it and 4 for it. So that application looks like to me it's been
Other way around.
No, I don't think so. 5 against and 4 for, wasn't it? Yeah. Sorry. So yeah, so some clarification on that. That application has been refused. Thank you. So, so now we'll go to agenda item number 9. I'll now hand over to Alison to present agenda item number 9 once again, F/YR22/014. It's a variation of conditions. So Alison, when you're ready, please. Thank you.
This application is to vary the conditions 14 and 17 relating to planning permission F/YR19/1029/F concerning the erection of 19 dwellings. The changes proposed to facilitate the delivery of a scheme for 100% affordable dwellings, erect an electrical substation and amend the accommodation schedule to 11 2-bed, 5 3-bed and 3 4-bed dwellings. Location of the site is land west of Hereward Hall, County Road, March, and the applicant is Minster Property Group Limited and This Land Limited. The agent is Mr. Jake Steniford of Surface Planning, and the application is before Planning Committee as the Town Council comments are contrary to the officer recommendation. Members will have received the written update, which notes that the Cambridgeshire Fire and Rescue Service have reiterated their earlier request relating to fire hydrants, which features as condition 12 on the agenda report, and notes that the recommendation remains as per pages 87 to 90 of the agenda. The slide currently on display shows the application site boundaries with access derived from the existing access which serves the school, the County Council offices and All Saints Close, an existing housing development. To the west of the site are properties in Robin Goodfellows Lane, and to the north of the site is the park, with the All Saints Close to the south and County Council offices to the west. The current slide shows the plot footprint of the earlier approval shown blue, which is overlaid with the current proposals. It is noted that the garages previously proposed shown green on the slide are no longer to be delivered as part of the development. The application has been submitted under section 73, which allows for minor material changes to an existing approval. And in the context of this development, the revisions are considered minor, noting that there is no increase in the quantum of development, no increase in dwelling footprints, or indeed the building envelopes. It is noted that objections have been received to the proposal. However, these relate to the principle of development, which has already been established under the original consent. In essence, this proposal merely revisits the detailed designs of the dwellings as a precursor to delivering a fully affordable housing scheme. As can be seen from the above slide, the site layout remains as per the original scheme, with the road connecting with the existing access to the southern end of the site and as an extension to the existing road serving the County Council offices and traversing in a northerly direction with a turning head to its northerly end. A substation is shown between plots 18 and 19. However, this is considered a minor addition in the context of the original approval. All supporting details have been updated to reflect the scheme revisions, and this includes a landscape master plan for the site as per the current slide on display. Street scene views have also been supplied to illustrate the scheme. The upper image shows plots 2 to 12 looking in a westerly direction, with the lower image illustrating plots 13 to 19 and plot 1. This image captures the proposed substation, which sits between plots 18 and 19. That's the low-level green section. The images currently on display show to the upper left-hand side the site is viewed from the County Council office boundaries, looking westward to Robin Goodfellow's Lane. The upper right-hand image is taken from the park to the north of the site, and the lower image shows the access to the site via the roadway serving the school, council offices and All Saints Close. There is an extant permission for the site for the same quantum of development, and the changes proposed by this submission are minor material amendments in the context of the approved scheme. The amendments are necessary to enable the housing development to come forward as a fully affordable proposal, and this section 73 application proposes minor changes to the dwelling footprints and designs whilst adhering to the originally approved layout in terms of road layout and technical details. It remains the case that, subject to appropriate conditions, the scheme may be delivered in accordance with the relevant planning policy framework without detriment to the character of the area, residential amenity, flood risk and highway safety. The comments of the Town Council and local residents are noted. However, there are no material considerations prompted by the revision shown that would warrant any other recommendation than grant. The recommendation therefore remains to grant as per pages 87 to 90 of the agenda. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, thank you once again, Alison. We have one speaker on this application. I'd now like to invite Jack Steniford to make his presentation to the committee. When you're ready, you've got 5 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. I'm Jake Stentiford. I'm the agent for this application. We fully agree with your officer's report and recommendation, so I just want to speak very briefly in support of the proposals. The proposed amendments comprise very minor changes to the footprints and design of the dwellings, along with the removal of 2 garages and the provision of a substation which is required for the electrical connection. There will be no negative effects as a result of these minor amendments. The main positive effect is that this will enable us to increase the provision of affordable homes on the site, making the development more policy compliant and increasing the benefits to local people who are in need of affordable housing. We're very keen to move forward and start delivering these homes, so I would be very grateful for your support for our application today. Thank you.
Haven't got any, so it doesn't look like anybody else has as well, so thank you very much. So members, questions, clarification to officers. Councillor French.
Thank you. With this being such a minor amendment, and I do note that the Town Council haven't put any material consideration objections to this, I just wonder why this had to come to the Planning Committee. The amount of officer time involved writing very lengthy reports, etc. I don't know, is there a specific, I'm just concerned, you know, it is so minor, but obviously this has taken enormous amount of time.
Through you, Chairman, I'll come back on that one if I may. I can't disagree, Councillor French, but unfortunately the scheme of delegation is quite clear that if we've got town council comments that are at variance to the officer recommendation on a major application, then it has to come to committee. The town council have objected to the application, reiterating their previous concerns, which I think related to the sort of the amount of development and its impact on the surrounding area. So consequently, under the scheme of delegation, it has to come back. So we are where we are.
Yes, that's to coin a phrase. Councillor Cornwall, thank you. It does.
They do have a right to make representations.
Yeah, so
but with it being so minor, but David's answered the question.
I wouldn't like to see that many already, to be fair, but as Councillor French says, they have got a right to, although on this occasion it just doesn't seem like.
Because we take no part in planning applications.
We'll see how the land lies on the first Monday of the month, shall we? And I shan't be there, so it's up to Councillor French now again. Right, let's get back on an even keel. So, right, any more questions? Officers, no. Right, so we're going to debate the application now. So you know what to do. Anybody wants to start this application by debate?
What is the point?
Sorry.
Moves the recommendation.
Well, something I've got to go through. It's got to go through protocol, hasn't it? So there is two. Strangely enough, it's Councillor Sutton first, Councillor Davies second. Thank you.
Yeah, I reiterate the concerns of other members. You know, this absolutely unnecessary to be here. It already has planning permission, or they objected to it originally, but I fail to see where there's any benefit to anyone, least of all the Marchtown Council. You know, it makes them look perhaps a bit foolish because, you know, in the objection, it notes that, you know, they didn't think they could object to it, but they will anyway. You know, it's just bizarre, really. You know, so the mind boggles, Chairman.
I think I'd like to come in there again and say I don't think we want that Marchtown Council making them quite foolish as well, because hopefully you're not going to stand for Marchtown Council the next election, Councillor Sutton.
You might do.
Councillor Davies, thank you.
I was just going to say that, you know, looking around the table, I think everyone really is quite agreed, and I don't see the need for any further debate. And so I'd like to propose that we move to a recommendation.
I agree. Officers, you haven't got, before we do that, you obviously you're shaking your head rather vigorously. So members, we'll let's have a who's going to propose it then? Okay, Councillor French, seconded by Councillor Davies, to go with officer recommendation to approve this application. All put your hands up on that. Councillor Sutton, yeah. So that application has been approved by you unanimously. Thank you. So with further ado, now we'll hand over to David Rowan to present application number 10, application number FYR 22/02970. So David, when you're ready, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. This is a outline application with all matters reserved to erect a dwelling and a garage workshop at land east of Maple Farm, Blue Lane, Wimbledon. The site is shown in red on the location plan and the aerial photo. It sits within the open countryside outside Wimbledon. To the west of the site is Maple Farm. Across to the east are the last dwellings considered to be part of the built form of Wimbledon. On the aerial photo in the bottom right corner is the edge of the Knowles Transport Warehouse. And then the land to the north of this is a current application for a car park to serve Knowles, which has not been determined as yet. The application is in outline with all matters reserved, so the layout is indicative only. This shows a dwelling in the centre of the site with a garage/workshop to the rear of this. Along the frontage of the site, it is illustrated that the road would be widened. So there's just a sort of a grey strip, very small grey strip, indicated to draw members' attention to that. The submitted plan also shows in the lighter purple colour the Knowles application site I referred to previously for their car park. The photos on the screen show the current nature of the site. In the upper photos, it's a part of an agricultural field with mature hedging to its front boundary. The lower photos show the frontage of the site and the nature of Blue Lane in the vicinity of the application site. So to summarise, the application site is located beyond the built form of Wimbledon and is therefore considered to be in an elsewhere location. No justification has been submitted which would see the principle of development being acceptable in policy terms. In addition, the development of the site is considered to have a detrimental impact upon the character and appearance of the area, contrary to policies of the local plan and the aims of the MBPF. An argument has been put forward in the application that the dwelling is required for the applicant to run his business. This is currently based in Whittlesea and will remain in Whittlesea. The business concerns fire and security systems and as such is not considered to be a rural business which needs to be in this location. The application would, it is claimed, allow for storage for the business. However, this is considered to be a somewhat tenuous argument to justify a new dwelling contrary to policy, given the considerable distance from where the business is located, and especially given that the building indicated is also proposed to be used for domestic use. Consequently, the recommendation is therefore to refuse as set out within the agenda. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, thank you once again, David. We have one set of speakers on the application. I'd now like to invite Dave Bridges, he's of course the applicant, and Russell Swan, he's the agent, to make their presentation to committee. You have 5 minutes between you, so just feel to start when you feel able. Thank you.
Perfect. We'll start again. Yeah. Good afternoon. My wife and I were both born and bred in the local area, spending the first 20 years in March and the last 11 in Doddington. We absolutely love the villages of Doddington and Wimbledon and are keen to stay local. Our 3 children are at the local schools and we're both on local charitable committees. We've been looking to move while staying in the villages for 3 years, but can't find any properties within our budget and fitting the family needs. The site forms a part of a larger farm owned and run by my father-in-law. The 3-acre cornfield is of low-grade agricultural soil, and with fertiliser costs tripling this year, is non-feasible to farm in the current market. Our single-family home would help offset these losses. The corner chosen is purely for the agricultural reasons that tractors can still access the other part of the farm. The home will be built set back from the road with the hedgerow replanted further back to allow visibility and passing along Blue Lane. We believe this will improve safety. I run a local fire and security business that employs 11 people in highly skilled, highly paid jobs, which is a great benefit to the local area. In fact, we are the only BAFE and SSRB approved firm in Fenland after the other one relocated to Peterborough. We have a small retail unit in Whittlesea, which is used as our operation, but we need a workshop I can access 24/7 for the assembly of control equipment and transmission devices. These devices need to be pre-configured prior to being delivered on site, and this site is perfect as I have an 800-metre line of sight to my father-in-law's sheds, therefore I can set up and use these long-distance transmission devices. This will result in a large increase of the products we can offer and in turn employ and train more local people. In conclusion, this development is essential to providing my family with a quality and forever home whilst improving additional jobs in the area.
Thank you. The application here is because of the local level of support received. The site is currently a small triangle of grade 3 agricultural land, which has been owned by Mr. Bridges for many years. It's not been farmed and it's on the edge of the built form of Wimbledon. The planning office states within the report that the site is located in elsewhere location. LP3 classifies Wimbledon as a growth village, and this site is opposite Coney Walk Estate and adjacent to residential properties further along Blue Lane. There's a planning application pending consideration on the land immediately to the south of the site for a new car park and 2-metre high fence extending Knowles Transport right up to the boundary of the property. The site lies within flood zone 1, demonstrating a preferable location for a new workshop and a dwelling under the local plan. The site lies only just outside of the speed limit signs, and highways have indicated there will be no objection to the proposal as long as the boundary hedge is trimmed, something we'd be happy for a condition. The proposed widening of the road at this location will also benefit the wider community. The proposal complies with the MPPF and local plan, and we feel that the proposal is consistent with other recent approvals. Mr. Bridges is preparing his business for the future in order to plan for the economic instability that we're all warned about and are already beginning to see with the cost of living crisis and energy prices. We need to help businesses like this ride the wave to ensure they survive long into the future. They're the future of Fenland. To conclude, the proposal is adjacent to built form within a growth village on grade 3 agricultural land that will never be used for agricultural purposes, especially if the car park for Knowles is effectively approved, landlocking the site. No objection from highways and was in flood zone 1. Please support this small business and approve of the conditions you deem appropriate. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much both. Now I'd like to invite members to questions to Mr. Bridges or Mr. Swan. If you'd like to ask a question or some clarifications, you know what to do. So just Councillor Davis, and just say who you'd like to ask the question to. Thank you.
Actually, the question probably be answered by either of you, but who owns, when highways say that the entrance where it is fine, as long as the hedging and all the bushes along there are taken care of, but who owns the next bit of the field on? Because that's where those bushes and trees are.
The whole field along there is owned by my father-in-law at present.
So it would be
We
maintained.
will maintain it, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Benny.
Yeah, question for Mr. Bridges. How many people do you employ at the moment, and how many people or how many additional jobs will this bring forward, bringing the scheme forward?
So I currently employ 11 people. The scheme will help increase the services we offer. It's hard to substantiate that, but on the testing alone at the minute, we spend over 10,000 on getting other people to do it, outsourcing it. So it will bring that in, and we continue to train around 2 to 3 new employees per year. We had 2 start in the last 12 months, and we intend to increase and keep doing that.
Councillor Cornwall.
So in effect, what you're actually buying the permission for is because you've been carrying out distance from part of the site.
That's correct, yes. The workshop will be used mainly for construction of plant equipment and building and testing diagnostics. It will be part of it, yeah.
So any more questions? Councillor Sutton and then Councillor Purser. Thank you.
Yeah, two questions. One is, can you, I'm not sure where this potential car park is. I don't know if officers can flip the screen back to the site plan.
I'm sure that can be done, Councillor Sutton.
Yeah, there. So is that grey area the potential new car park?
Yes.
All right. Yeah. So the other question is, the workshop doesn't look that much bigger than a good double garage.
It's an outline application at the moment, so all those matters are reserved. So we will design the workshop and the home appropriate for Mr. Bridges' needs when we get to that stage of the project. And if you guys want to see the reserved matters application before you at that time, then we'd be more than happy for that.
Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Purser, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, we know that Wimbledon is not, shall we say, a rough area as such. It's not a bad area, what have you. But I didn't actually remember seeing it in any things. But is part of you actually living on the site part of the security thing as well? You know, sort of with it being safer to actually be on site for security of the business. Is that part of the consideration?
Yeah, absolutely. So as an accredited firm, a lot of the stuff we do has to be controlled, like our offices in Whittlesea are monitored, alarm with police response. The workshop, if anything is pre-configured, it should be kept secure until it is dispatched to site, because if anything is altered, it would then need redoing. So it is essential, ideal to be near that equipment.
Finished, Councillor Percy, yeah? Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sorry.
Right, anybody else? Any questions before we let those go back to the seats? No? Thank you very much for that, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just let them get seated and then we'll. Members, questions, clarifications to officers? No, I can't see any with a burning desire for ask any questions to officers, so we'll quickly move on. So members, I'd like to ask you to debate the item in respect of the material planning considerations relevant to the application. If you'd like to speak, please raise your hand. So who would like to kick that off? Councillor Cornwall, thank you.
So looking at this, want to do.
What I can do is bring David in just to, that probably be clarified better than I have. Thank you.
Thank you, through you, Chairman. The application is submitted is for a dwelling and workshop / garage. Now, the supporting information indicates that that is in connection with a business. However, if you were more typically looking at a workplace home, you would perhaps expect the workplace element to be maybe more prominent in the submission. So clearly the building that's indicated is talked about as a garage / workshop, as opposed to being a sort of a commercial building within a particular use class, for instance, which does tend to give a bit more of the impression that it's perhaps slightly lower key than it's perhaps been sort of put across by the two speakers that you've had. I think it's also worth perhaps at this point just quoting elements of the design and access statement that's been submitted with the application. So there's a comment in the design and access statement: the garage / workshop will only accommodate a single worker, therefore will not generate a significant amount of noise. And I think there's sort of similar sort of references within that document. Whereas I think what which again sort of reiterates that almost fairly low key working from home, sort of split between domestic and sort of an small element of commercial, but nothing significant. Whereas I think what we've just heard from the speakers is that this is perhaps going to be a slightly more intense commercial use on the site. You know, talking about the whole line of sight issue with adjacent buildings, that will allow for training to take place, potential for additional people to be employed, which potentially is somewhat different to what's being put across within the actual body of the application, I think. And certainly, I think perhaps from a highway perspective, I'm not necessarily sure that they've commented upon a sort of a more intense commercial use at the site. I think they've commented really on a proposal for a dwelling with a garage and workshop.
So with that, has that?
See what's happening, but it's not terribly clear, is it? Why
No.
it was initially described.
Does that clarify your position, Councillor Cornwall? Does that clarify your position and answer? I think yes or no is the answer.
I think the thing is, it raises more questions. That's the problem. It raises more questions because I think suddenly we begin to consider use as opposed to a fully list. That's the problem that I have. I think that other members might certainly.
Well, no doubt other members will join in because we're still in debate. Councillor Davis, please. Thank you.
Yes, I agree with Councillor Cornwall. Initially, when you look at the application, you're thinking in terms of you know, a house and also a small workshop type. Although it's business, there's no talk of them moving anything from Whittlesea to there anyway. So you raised it. Its position. It's out in the open countryside, despite the car park from Knowles's. It is going out into the open countryside. It is sited on quite a dangerous bend. I mean, you really can't see when you're going around there. If the idea is to actually make this more of a business, then we're going to have different vehicles going in there, which actually throws up a whole new. And I don't think highways have really. Their comments are not related to a larger business. They're just looking at a house with a small workshop. So I think if the applicant is definitely going to make this a bigger business, maybe this application should be deferred and they need to come back with a better application.
Okay, so we're still in debate. Anybody? I can't see anybody else. Oh, yes, I can. Councillor Mayor, thank you.
Yeah, my concern is the highways issue, to be honest. The parish council objected on highways grounds, and I think that they got that right. And Councillor Davis obviously knows the area better than most. Highways did comment that it was on a dangerous area, so I'm concerned about that as much as anything.
Yeah, pertinent answer, Councillor Mayor. Councillor Sutton, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I sort of agree with other speakers that, and that's why I asked about the size of it, because I couldn't sort of weigh up how that was that much different to a decent sized double garage, along with, you know, a nice house, which we all want to see. But if I had access to that bit of land to put that house and workshop anywhere I wanted, and I don't know whether they did have that choice, but it certainly wouldn't have been in that corner, whereas, you know, far more dangerous than anywhere else. I would have stuck it up close to, you know, the houses opposite, and I think had that been there, I might have had a little bit different opinion, but I don't think we can pass this as it stands. I think there's too many questions unanswered. I just think it is, you know, and whether we defer it or refuse it, doesn't stop the applicants coming back in with a different, you know, if they've got access to that triangle land, they can come in with it somewhere else or whatever. But I don't think we can support that. Even though we want to support business, of course we do, that, you know, that goes without saying, but that can't be at the expense of everything else, which has been the case in the past. You know, we've got to look at it, and as Councillor Cornwall quite rightly says, you know, it has raised, and Councillor Davis and Mayor before me, you know, it does raise far more questions than answers. So for me personally, the way it is, I can't support it.
Okay, I'll just come in there. I don't think we should defer this. I mean, either we should either pass it or refuse it. They have got another chance to come back and take the committee's points into consideration, haven't they? So anybody else? I'm going to shut up now. Councillor Benny.
Yeah. I agree with Councillor Davis. I agree with everybody really sitting around here about the site itself. I think there's certainly agree with Councillor Sutton for the siting of it. I mean, there's access to, if you own the whole site, to put a road in on a better access point that would lead to the house if you wanted to put a house in. On a more technical aspect of this, if we defer it, we just put it back. If we refused it today, that can come back in as a free go, can't it?
They can, and that's that's what I'd like. That's what if that's the committee's decision, that's what I'd like them to do.
No.
Cautious around that. Just to pick up on through you, Chairman, the issue of the free go, as I'm sure members are aware, there are certain criteria around that, same application site, same character of development, etc. So I would just be cautious in terms of the committee kind of almost giving a free application away.
That what.
Well, no, I mean, it's up to the applicant. We've got to make our decision here today. My view is that it's not right for the committee to defer. We've got to make a decision one way or another, and that's how I'd like the committee to do this. So, Councillor Benny, thank you.
I mean, you know, we've got a business here which we should be supporting.
Absolutely.
I just feel that maybe the access at the point of access is not the best for this site. I think the committee have given the applicant a bit of a steer as to where we feel. It's not that we want to refuse this just outright because it's turning a business away, which we don't want to do. We want to encourage that. But I think we've given some steer as to where maybe a different application coming before us could be supported by the committee. I'd like to think that that's where we could be. But I really feel there's not enough information in this. This is always a problem with an outline application. You haven't got a full plan in front of you showing an exact plan of what you are. It's just an indicative layout on an outline. And I think a full application coming back showing the workshop and having an application that is in line with its proposed use would be better for us to see, so we could give a more informed decision. I think that would be a fair steer to the applicant on this one.
That's a really good reflection on the way things are. Did you want to come in there, David?
If I may, Chairman, yeah, I think I would again probably just caution members against being too proactive, shall we say, in terms of giving steers as to what may or may not be acceptable in terms of different access positions or different sightings, because obviously any future application needs to be considered on its particular merits, and indeed needs to be or needs to go through the relevant consultation with consultees such as the Highway Authority.
Yeah, thank you for giving that steer on that, David. So we're still in debate. Anybody else got anything to add to the debate before Councillor French?
Yeah, I agree with everybody else. I did go down the site on Monday, and that bend is bad. I mean, we were in Councillor Benny's tank. I wouldn't like to take my car down there. So I totally agree.
You want me to drive your car down? Yeah. So still in debate. Before I close, I'm going to close this debate now. I can't see anybody with burning ambition to add to it. David, would you like, as an officer, would you like to come in there before I look for proposals?
No, I think the relevant issues have been sort of picked up by members. I think it's a case of seeing what the sort of proposal is, and depending on where that's heading, I may need to sort of contribute at that point, shall we say? But I think at this point, happy for members to.
Thank you, David. We'll do so now. Members, I'd like to ask you to make a proposal on this said application. Could I have a proposer, please? Councillor Sutton.
Yeah, it is a reluctant proposal, Chairman, in all honesty, because as we've said, we want to support business and particularly small and growing businesses, but that can't be to the expense of everything else. And I feel that, you know, the position here is just not right. So I'll go along with officer's recommendation. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you. So we've got a proposal to go with officer's recommendation to refuse the said application. It's proposed by Councillor Sutton. I did see Councillor Davis put her hand up, so I'm sure she's going to second that. So with that, we'll now go to the vote on that proposal. So all those in favour of going again with officer's recommendation to refuse this, please put your hands up. So that is unanimous. That application has been refused. Thank you. So now I'll hand over, we'll go to application agenda item number 11, application FYR 220380/F. Now hand over to David Rowan to present this application. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Chairman. Initially, just draw members' attention to the update report that's been circulated in respect to this item. It's a full planning application to erect a single dwelling land northwest of 35 Doddington Road in Benwick. The application site is shown in red on the location plan and aerial photo. As you can see, it sits to the rear of the properties on Doddington Road, which are largely in a similar alignment. There was a previous refusal in February this year for an identical scheme. The site is also in flood zone 3. The application is in full. It's proposed to take access down the side of number 35 and then through to the dwelling at the rear. So this is shown in black on the site plan. Immediately to the rear of 35 is a proposed area of car parking for the existing dwelling. So it's kind of the first yellow hammerhead. And then there's sort of as you'd expect, an area of car parking associated with the actual proposed dwelling. The elevations proposed are shown at the bottom of the image. This is a 2-storey dwelling with first floor accommodation in the roof space, essentially giving the appearance of a sort of a chalet type bungalow. To move on to the photographs, the upper left images show the left-hand images show the existing access to be utilised. Particularly the upper left one, which shows the view from Doddington Road. The lower left image is in the approximate position of the proposed car parking to serve number 35, sort of looking north to where the further access would sort of run through towards the site of the dwelling. And then the right-hand images show the view back sort of down the site towards number 35 and Doddington Road. So to move on to summarise, the application is considered to be backland development, which would be at odds with the prevailing character of the area and would conflict with policies of the local plan in this respect, but also would conflict with policies of the local plan in terms of principle. Benwick is a small village where infill will only usually be supported. In addition, it is not considered that the site is sequentially acceptable in flood risk terms, as there is an unimplemented planning permission elsewhere within the village which could accommodate this development. In addition, no sustainability measures have been submitted which would address the issue of the exception test. Consequently, the application is recommended for refusal as set out within the officer report.
Yeah, thank you once again, David. We have one speaker on this. It's George Boreham again. He's the agent. So I'd like to invite him to make his presentation to committee. Again, you have 5 minutes when you're ready to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Members will note that there are no technical objections to this application. All letters of support submitted are from Doddington Road, where this proposal is located, indicating some local support for the proposal. Benwick itself has a shop, primary school, village shop and roads connecting to Whittlesea, Chatteris and surrounding villages. The site is located in flood zone 3, although a detailed flood risk assessment has been provided and approved by the Environment Agency with mitigation measures which would comply with policy LP14, managing flood risk. As members will know, the majority of Benwick is in flood zone 3 with a limited amount of land in flood zones 1 and 2, which has been developed. The proposed dwelling is a modest 3-bedroom chalet bungalow, which limits the height of the dwelling. Concerns have been raised regarding on-street parking. This will not take place as the proposal allows off-street parking for both the existing and proposed properties. The proposed dwelling will have an air source heat pump and solar panels to ensure energy efficiency for health and well-being as per LP2. Could we have the map on the screen that we submitted, please? When you view along this section of Doddington Road, there is Fountain Close, which we have highlighted in green on the left, which extends further away from Doddington Road rather than just frontage development. Further west into Benwick along Doddington Road, further developments over the years have been allowed, such as Heron Way and Cricketers Close, which extend back from Doddington Road. The officer's report under 10.5 advises that the design and materials will not be incongruous within the surroundings. The report further advises under 10.7 there would not be adverse impacts on residential amenities. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Now I'd like to invite members to put questions or indeed clarifications to Mr. Boreham. If you'd like to ask a question, clarifications, etc., raise your hand. And so anybody want any questions from Mr. Boreham? I can't see any. We've got away with that very lightly. Thank you very much. Members, questions, clarifications to officers? No. Councillor Benny, was that? Oh, you were scratching your eye. My goodness me. Okay, so we've got no one wants any questions to officers after that. So thank you very much for that. Now, members, I'd like to ask you to debate the application in respect of material planning considerations relevant to the application. So if you'd like to speak, raise your hand. Who wants to kick it off? So we're in debate, guys. So we've got two at once. I'll take Councillor Cornwall first and Councillor Benny. Thank you.
Could somebody please explain what's the difference between this application and the previous ones in practice? Because all I can see is referral to the number of supporters. Well, okay.
I thought, sorry, Mr. Chairman, I thought it was questions first. No, it's the other way about.
Officers first, then debate.
Yeah.
Then officers again.
That is a question.
Sorry about that. So lost, and I've not been well for a fortnight, so you'll have to forgive me. Thank you. So anyway, question to officers. Sorry about that. Thank you, Councillor Mayor.
Through you, Chairman. No, this is an identical application to the one that was refused planning permission earlier in the year. Other than this has been accompanied by letters of support to basically trigger it to come to planning committee.
Councillor French.
Yeah, so the reason it was refused and then it hasn't been addressed, is that what you're saying? That's what the report says.
Through you, Chairman, I suppose, to be fair to the applicants, it's somewhat difficult to address the issue of backland development. The site is where it is, but yeah, nothing has changed from the previous scheme.
Thank you.
Councillor Murphy.
Yeah, thanks so much. I noticed on there where it's got the people or local residents, But I believe, and whether you can tell me, David, but I believe it's more like a pro forma letter written out.
Says so, doesn't it?
And all, yes, I know, but in also what it says on there is just names and addresses put into it. Well, I don't, if that's the sort of thing that comes up, that should not be there as letters of support at all, because that is nothing to do with that at all. They haven't got a brain to think about themselves what to put, and all they're just putting is the name and address on it. And that to me is totally wrong.
Okay, you'd like perhaps to
Yeah, through you,
answer to
Chairman. There's probably some points there that I can't perhaps comment upon,
absolutely
other than certainly when I looked at the letters of support, and I think it's set out in the report as well, certainly they're not individual sort of bespoke letters. They are of a fairly
That's right.
uniform nature, I believe.
So any questions on? Right, now we'll be back to the application. And so we'd like to be on. And so would you like to?
Yeah, happy to kick it off, Chairman, and I'm happy to state that I don't have any problem with pro formas. Nobody has to sign them. Nobody's forced into sign them, and you know, that's a democratic right of every person that, you know, quite legitimate in that form. So I don't have any problem at all. I did look at the comments on the application on the public access. I did note that if it is the person that I think it is, there was a comment from a former district councillor in a neighbouring authority who was very experienced, sat on that planning committee for quite a number of years, and you know, he actually responded using policy numbers as to why he was objecting to it, and you know, that is the right way to go about it. We often get letters of support, you know, people don't really, without being disrespectful, but lots of people don't really understand planning material matters, and you know, make all sorts of comments, and you know, we have to unfortunately disregard a lot of those. It is backland, it is way out of keeping, and despite what the speaker said, you know, the areas where he said there's built at depth, and there are some in Benwick, there's no question about that, there are some in all villages, but those ones that he referred to are more in the core of the village, where you'd expect, you know, for that name, and this is way out, you know, it would set a precedent that, you know, should we pass that, you'd struggle to stop anything, you know, like right in the middle. So I think officers got this one right again, and I'll be happy to support their recommendation, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Sutton. We're in debate. Anybody else? Councillor Davis, please. Thank you.
Some people might think this is playing the system. The application was refused and now it's come back and it's exactly the same application. The only difference is that there are now people supporting the application. That's the system. And it's right to bring it to this committee. And whatever we decide, then they're going to have to live with it. I'm prepared to go with officer's recommendation because I don't actually see that anything's changed. So I don't think those 7 supporting letters make any difference.
Okay, Councillor Benny.
Thank you. Great. Slightly different view, as I sometimes do on these things. I mean, I know Benwick well. I've had plenty of friends in Benwick. My wife works at, well, I've got 1 or 2. I did have one at March.
Don't exaggerate, Councillor Benny.
I mean, my wife worked in the local shop in Benwick, and my grandson goes to, or both my grandchildren go to the school in Benwick as well. And villages struggle. That shop struggles in Benwick. Now, I've been on this planning committee for 4 years, just over, and I've not seen an application come through that's passed housing in Benwick. And if villages do not get growth, they will shrink and they will die. That shop in Benwick is struggling. And if we don't get some more houses there to support that, the whole community is going to lose out, because that shop will not be there. That building where that shop is has been built so that can be converted into flats. And that was a fallout position because the man who built it had the shop in Mainy, and he built it and he sold it because he couldn't make any money out of it. So that was a big investment to go into Benwick when that was there. And with all that, with all villages, they need housing growth, and they need people there to support the local business, the local school. That needs more children there to keep that viable. That school's been there for a long time. But I look at this and I've seen no applications come before this committee, and the whole time I've been on here for Benwick. We've had a couple and they've all been refused. Now that village needs some growth. It needs it in one form or another. And when you look down that road, in the main street in Benwick, you've got Fountains, which is just a little bit further up, going back into the village. And you've also got Heron Way, which is also built back. You've got the river behind this. That is a natural buffer zone. So I personally don't see any problem with building this. There is only 3 or 4 other houses between Fountains and where this application is. I think that would be a good place to build houses, personally. Not just this one, maybe more than that if they come forward. You know, we'd have to look at it in its own way, but villages need support, and they need the building. And there's been nothing. 4 years, we have not passed anything that's come through this committee in 4 years. So looking at this, is this going to open up other applications? It may well do. But look at Mainy, look at Westfield Road in Mainy. That is full of backland development. And look how Mainy has developed and Mainy has come forward. Mainy had one struggling shop, and that's now a thriving community. And that's because of housing growth. So there is the other side to this in terms of community benefit for the whole of Benwick. So I would be inclined to support this application today based on those grounds, because Benwick needs houses and there's nothing else coming forward. The other things that come forward, we've all refused. So that would be my thought. And I think that this application could be something that actually starts where we get applications for Benwick to support Benwick.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Benny. Councillor Sutton, then Councillor Murphy. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Oh, certainly. Councillor Davies then.
Morning.
Thank you.
I just wanted to answer Councillor Benny and just point out that Benwick Parish Council said that they didn't want individual backland development when they've got so many brownfield sites that could be developed. And there has to be something wrong if developers are not coming forward. So I think I don't like this application because it is backland development, and I hear what you're saying, but one wonders why the developers are not coming forward, and it must be that really, I mean, do people not want to live as far out as Benwick? I don't know.
Sutton, thank you.
I agree with 99.9999999% of what Councillor Benny says. But this is not the way to get development, and because one dwelling is not going to keep that shop open. So those of you that are on the new local plan working group needs to address these things, because it isn't only Benwick. All the small villages need growth, and they need it fast. You'll lose the schools, you'll lose the church, you'll lose the village halls, you'll lose the shops, those that have got them. And what I saw of the local plan when it was up for cabinet, I mean, it is just crackers, absolutely crackers. They will ruin the villages if they go through with that plan, absolutely ruin it. But this is not the answer, in my view. You know, one dwelling is not going to keep that shop open or whatever. That needs addressing in a proper manner and not like this. Thank you.
Councillor Murphy, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I was just going to say something exactly the same. It's answering Councillor Benny. This application is only for one house. It won't keep the school going. It won't keep the shop going. Let's be honest about it. It will not happen like that. I think the Bennett Parish Council, what they say, is totally right. And there is nothing different between this plan and the last plan. And let's face it, the last plan was only 4 months ago. And we're sitting here again talking about the same thing. So I think that is not right either. I think they got it right. The Bennett has. It's in flood zones 3, and also, as we said earlier, it doesn't address the reasons for the refusal of the last one. So I think we should go for refusal for this one.
Thank you, Councillor Murphy. Councillor French.
Yeah, I agree with what you're all saying. There's nothing changed on that. But I would like to address Councillor Sutton. I am on the local plan working party. I believe today the new documents are out, and I think you will get a surprise, which is going to Cabinet on the 13th of June. And I think you'll find it's called Address.
Right. So thank you for that information, Councillor French. I think Councillor Sutton smiles on his face. I think he's quite happy with that answer. So we're still in debate. Or maybe not. No. Time will tell. So anyway, getting back to this application, we're still in debate. Anybody else got anything to add to debate before I go into officers? Doesn't look no. No, thank you very much for that. So you've got nothing at all to add to it. Thank you. So members, it's proposal time. Who would like to make a proposal on this application? So it's Councillor Murphy. Thank you.
I propose, Mr. Chairman, that we go with the officers for refusal.
Okay, so I'm going to put my glasses on here. So we've got a proposal from Councillor Murphy to go with officer recommendation to refuse this application. Have I got a seconder? Councillor Mayor. Okay, we'll try. Thank you very much. So just to sum up once again, then we've got a proposal to go with officer's recommendation to refuse this application, proposed by Councillor Sutton, seconded by Councillor Mayor. All those in favour of that proposal? Sorry, Councillor Murphy.
I'm not changing the name for anybody.
I'm putting a lighter-hearted on it. He's got more hair than you, so I should have recognised, shouldn't I? So here we go. So with that in mind, or with that proposal, shall we go to the vote now? So on that proposal, those in favour of going against officer recommendation? Going against, that's what I said. Going with officer recommendation. Yeah. I'm not well today, sorry. Right. Those in favour? Yeah. So those against, yeah, those against, yeah, those against me. 2. So that application has been refused. Thanks very much. So with that, it will go on to David for the appeals. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. So item 12 is just a run through of the planning appeal decisions that we've received over the last few months. So the first one of these is at Wood Street in Chatteris. The application site shown in red on the location plan. This was an application for a single dwelling. As you see, the gardens from Wood Street run to the north-south. The application was refused as it was considered that a dwelling in this location would be contrary to the character of the area. The inspector did recognise the spacious character that these gardens provide, but considered that the overall street scene was urban in its nature and therefore allowed the appeal. Any members have got any questions about that at all? Okay, Councillor Bennett. Yes. Yes. Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, David and I spoke about it because I signed it off, I suppose. I signed that off, I suppose, and David and I were really, really surprised that that application was approved. But we are where we are. You can't. There's not. Inspectors don't always get it right. There's no more than we do they? So, thank you.
Thank you. So the next appeal decision relates to a Class Q barn conversion at Willow Farm, Exmoor Drove, Christchurch. This was refused on the basis that the extent of works were considered to go beyond those which could be considered a conversion and amounted instead to a new build. However, the inspector concluded that actually the works were within the scope of a conversion and allowed the appeal accordingly. That decision was perhaps made on the basis of some additional structural information that was submitted during the course of the appeal, and the council did actually make a cost claim on this basis, which the inspector did not allow, as he considered the council had not been put to unnecessary or wasted expense, despite the fact that the appellant said that the council, if they'd had this information, may well have considered things differently.
Any questions? Members, any questions on that appeal decision? Yeah, we are. Carry on, David, please.
Thank you. So the next decision was at 16 Perry Road in Leverington. This was an application for a single dwelling in between pairs of semi-detached properties. The inspector considered that these sort of pairs of semis provided a defined character which the development would conflict with, and that this impact would be exacerbated by its height and decision. The appeal was therefore dismissed.
Members, any thoughts on that one? Any? No. Right, David, we're going on well here.
Thank you. So the next one, this is actually a committee decision. Members may recall this permission in principle at the rectory Benwick being refused at committee back in the autumn of 2020, I think, in accordance with officer recommendation. The inspector concluded the site was in an elsewhere location, not being within the built form of the settlement, and in particular noted that a site could be considered in general terms to be part of the village, but not be in the village for the purposes of the spatial strategy, which I think is quite a key decision for the purposes of interpreting sort of the relevant policies of the local plan in that regard. As well as this principal issue, she also considered that the development would have an urbanising effect on the character and appearance of the area. And given that the site was in an elsewhere location, the site failed sequentially from a flood risk perspective. Other matters were also considered at the hearing, including the issue of 5-year land supply and indeed the benefits which the application could potentially bring to Benwick and its sustainability. But the outcome was that the harm identified outweighed any benefits in the inspector's view, and the appeal was therefore dismissed.
The committee got that one exactly right as far as the inspector is concerned, which is a good thing. So David, after you again, thanks.
And to move on to the final one, this was an application at 21A East Delphi in Whittlesea to erect a single dwelling. The inspector considered that the indicative development would not have an acceptable impact on surrounding dwellings and dismissed the appeal on this basis. The inspector did consider car parking, although it wasn't part of the reason for refusal, and concluded that one space would be acceptable in this accessible location, but as I say, the appeal was dismissed.
Have you got any comments on that one? No. So that, thank you, David. So we won a 3 and lost 2 on that. So that's not bad, is it? It wouldn't be it wouldn't be championship standard, would it? But we'd be in the top 6, no doubt, on that one if we were in playing football, wouldn't we? So with that, so I'll declare the meeting closed at 10 to 3, and thank you very much for coming. I'm sorry that I wasn't up to my usual standard because I haven't been very well for 2 weeks. So
well, let's hope you are next month.
That was a Sunday.